All right, hello, hello. Let's get this started. We're gonna continue on. Come here, kitty. Come here, kitty cat. Raw. Hold on. Meet Shadow, my baby boy, my little baby boy, my little baby kitty cat. Kitty cat, what's up, dude? Oh, I gotta give him a little love. Hold on. Wee kitty, yeah, kitty, yeah, kitty, kitty. Oh, okay. Do the thing. Do the cat thing. Yep, do the cat thing. Yep, just the tail in the face and the butt, just like that. Good job. Good job. All right, you go do the thing. All right. Well, we're gonna continue on from where we left off last time. We gotta just okay. Nice. You make yourself at home up there. Just gotta set up a few things before we do. Continue forth. Oh, thanks. You just bump into me like that. That's nice. Thank you so much. Huh. Um, all right. Testing out different times, seeing when people are up. So it might take a moment for me to get started, but giving a moment for people to join in. Let me adjust my scene here. There we go. All right, perfecto. So math is so great. Math helps us think. And honestly, I was one of those students exclaiming in my early classes, why do I need math? I'm gonna have a calculator in my pocket. Or the teacher that says, you need to know math because you're not gonna have a calculator in your pocket. And now we all have a phone. And it's nice. It's nice to use our phone for those case scenarios where we need that extra help, but it does impair us. It handicaps our abilities. So these streams are meant to help build those brain cells in the logical sense of things in a way that we can use logical puzzle solving, troubleshooting. And that's an interesting case. I was pretty decent in math growing up, but I didn't realize that it would benefit me in computers, not just the programming side of things, but also troubleshooting, thinking of things that can be fixed when it comes to a computer breaking down. Now, the case scenario is you can fix every computer by reinstalling the whole operating system, but normally that's the last thing you want to do. It's one of those more obtrusive strategies. So you would try to fix everything else first before you erase the whole system and start from scratch every single time. Unless you have a virus, then, well, probably best case is just to reinstall the whole thing. But the key is our goal in troubleshooting is to figure out what would be the best approach, the most efficient approach, without completely destroying the system. Uh, Before we replace the hard drive, going into the hardware and touching up on all those circuits and, you know, the issues of trying to fix something without breaking it further, we will try our IT tech troubleshooting, trying to find a way to fix things in the software level before we go down to the hardware level. That's the typical IT goal. And in mathematics, we kind of have that same jurisdiction, the same thought process. There's a reason why a student may finish the test in 15 minutes versus someone else that might take the whole test time to do the process. It's because the student that finished early has basically taken the most effective steps, knowing his way around, or at least understanding enough of the concepts to know when to do what at what time. And that's kind of what we want to expand on. Taking information, knowing what and where we are, and taking the correct steps of the most effective way without causing more chaos, really. Mhm. So let's go ahead and kind of start refreshing on what we did before. We're observing code in a general sense. We are using JavaScript since it's the most accessible format for anyone to start. You don't have to be a technical genius. You don't have to install development kits and development environments and extra Python libraries of Java and all this extra stuff. All you need is a notepad and a browser. Because of that simplicity, I always like to focus with JavaScript when I'm dealing with not JavaScript specific stuff, but when dealing with the concepts in programming. So you can think of these streams as programming concepts or a class on programming and coding concepts. But we do need a workspace. So we do have a workbench being developed as we speak. Let me set up my workbench space, which looks good so far. Okay. I don't want to go too far because normally there are a decent amount of people that join in and follow up, but I do stream on different times. So potentially, depending on the presence of people, if you are here, do give a shout out in chat. Let me see the activity. Because this is a different time than I normally stream, and I don't want to go ahead too far if there are not too many people involved. So I'm going to chill here for a bit, see the response, see people, how many there are, and see the basically the attendance. I'd rather, in most cases, I would like to have at least one person. Because if I'm recording something, I'd like to help at least one person uh, with the videos. Normally, I make videos in general, and I feel the most kind of self-rewarded when at least the time spent is given to an individual that benefits from it. So drop any chats. Let me see who's on attendance and we can begin. Now, we're looking at our beginning code factors. Every single language has 15%. I like to repeat things because you never know when there will be new people in chat, especially on these live case scenarios. 15% of all languages share the same syntax, or at least the context. The syntax itself will change. Sometimes you have JavaScript, parentheses. Sometimes you'll have Python-based tabbing. Those are just different ways we use languages in the not grammatical, I guess, more like the, yeah, actually grammatical sense, because you got two pieces. You got grammar and you got vocabulary. So languages tend to follow similar syntax, or in the case of logic and tools used in the program. And we can see kind of a little overview here where we've got a set of languages. We can think of them as JavaScript, we can think of them as Python, Lua, PHP, C Sharp, C++, mm, R programming even. A lot of different languages exist, but there is a couple of top ones that we like to work with here. Most of the time, JavaScript, PHP, and Python. All different base uses, by the way. Very useful in 3 case scenarios. Python, normally. I like to use it for any sort of computer control, creating scripts, processing, let's say, Excel spreadsheets, uh, doing math within those Excel spreadsheets, and a lot of data on analytics. And this is maybe where we can kind of expand on this case here. So for a game dev, you may be looking at Unity or Unreal or Godot, or some might say Godot, which honestly I've said that for a while in the beginning too. Godot. So that would be a case for using Unity as C sharp. Unreal, I believe, is C++. And Godot basically has C++ and has multiple support, so no particular language that it focuses on. It has, I'm gonna say C sharp, C++. Let me check another one. Uh, Godot programming languages. There's also GD scripts, I suppose. That's a personal version. GD scripts. Those are the places you can start within that bracket of information. What else? C, yeah, C, C++, C sharp. Yeah, there we go. That's basically all of them. Well, C++ and C, one can consider pretty strictly similar in the formatted ways. But if you, let's say, want to be a data analyst, you're kind of going to a different set of languages that you might want to work with. Some of them are Python. This can manage files. You can organize specific types of, well, you can basically manage any file system file, spreadsheets, documents, PDF files, whatever. R programming, specifically for data handling. So this actual programming language was optimized to parse information. And not only can you optimize with R programming, but if you have a MV2 drive, kind of a solid state, right? Solid state drive, you can optimize the amount of processing you can do on one of those languages because file handling can be quite burdensome on the file system. You may use a special piece of hardware to basically optimize all the parsing you will be doing, all the data, reading, writing, multiplying, etc. Right? Processing. For web development, I'm going to keep apps over here because web development would be a case scenario for web apps. Web development, you look at languages like PHP, JavaScript, where we are at. You can also use Python, Django specifically, a Django server. But I wouldn't, personally, I haven't really used Django to be specific in it. So it's not something I would recommend, at least in the fact that PHP basically serves that case scenario all the time. So we normally like to stick with PHP for the server side, JavaScript for the client side, keywords to know as a developer, which we'll look into in the future. Also, questions that can be asked if anyone needs to know specifically what makes them different. And then Python kind of basically works as a server side. So again, you only need one language on the server side. You don't need too many to basically uh, create your own server-based project. Apps, well, we can think of a lot of app types. Mobile apps, web apps, local applications on a system. I think most software nowadays, when we say software development, it's basically in reference to just being an app development because, well, Windows has a store now. Mac has had a store for a while. And what we would normally use as a installer has now kind of transferred or translated itself as a App Store installation, which is a good thing. A lot of applications on those app stores tend to be pretty safe, right? Pretty straightforward and safe for anyone to access. And because the internet can be quite a, uh, well, free for all, you never want to install anything you're not completely sure of, right? Anything considered an exe can become a exploit to your system. So we don't necessarily like to install a lot of things on the internet unless we know them, we've tested them, we've maybe used them for ages, and we try to keep things pretty simplified. So app stores, Microsoft stores, all of those types of services, they are pretty good in keeping us safe. Well, most apps on a computer, you're looking at C++, Java, and of course C Sharp, we'll throw it in there. Most applications that you may want to work with. For Java, of course, you can expand even into the Android spaces with Android Studio, but you can create local Java applications on a PC computer as well. Or if you're the hobbyist on, let's say, Minecraft, SourceForge, all of those types of scripting or, well, modded systems or modded Minecraft systems, you would use Java or you would have to learn Java in order to be able to create your own mods to a Minecraft system. And finally, drivers, well, that's still very similar, but we'd probably go with C++, maybe C Sharp, I guess, for Microsoft based drivers. And the most important one that no one really knows anymore, assembly. This is probably the most powerful language in the world. Also, the most difficult language in the world. Because most of the languages that we, well, use have a very humanistic approach. They have words like if, for, while. It doesn't necessarily work that way in assembly. You may have some similar words like MOV for moving, uh, but you're not gonna have easy to use variables and contexts. You may need to use labels to create loops, like a goto and label. So you would use goto to go to a specific label when you get to a certain line, and then you would keep going to that label until you go or skip over the goto space. And that's like a manual way of creating a loop, and also a manual way of creating an if statement. And of course, we're dealing with direct memory access, so you would be using registries in the processor specifically to add, subtract, and all those extra features that a nice language like C or C++ will generally have. So, in a general, assembly as a more powerful language because it can access memory directly, you can essentially use it to its full potential. They also kind of differ between an x86 type processor, or we can just call it the three or a couple of types, 32-bit, 64-bit. You got an ARM processor, and so on and so forth. So there's just so many different assemblers for the different types of languages or types of processors. So not only do you have to learn assembly, but you'd have to learn it for a specific processor. And let's say a new one pops up. Well, now you got to learn that one too. So I'm going to go ahead and call it here. Not a lot of attendees at the moment, but this is a good kind of overview of like the other 85%. The part that expands on what you know as the basics of programming and then goes further into a specific library and the language of that case. And I'll probably review it next time for the next session, but this might be not the best time to make a live as it is 5 o'clock, 2 o'clock, depending on where you are. And most people having lunch, chilling. It's a Monday, maybe going out, having fun. It's a summer. So I'll call it here for now. But this is a good little quick video on languages and their purposes. That's really the key for this one, as we can see. I can always basically ramble on about all kinds of programming stuff. I could have went on a whole math case scenario for programmers, which is what the title is about. But because not a lot of attendees or a lot of people coming in and out, I'll go ahead and stick with this subject and call it here and continue tomorrow on the next session where we'll do more mathematics for coding. And that'll be it. So keep in mind, as a developer, as a mathematician, as a teacher, if you do need any help with any of these cases, I'm more specific to, well, web development and data analysis. I can still help with game development, at least as a starting point. I won't be able to teach you any advanced stuff as I personally am not a game developer, but I know enough to basically get started and show the way. And given that a student has enough personal indication, passion, enthusiasm for the subject, there's a plethora of resources that can help guide any student on any of these subjects. But as a teacher, I do a lot of mathematics assistance for grades from fifth grade up to 12, and even preparations into college. Hey, cat, come back over here. And preparations into college, calculus, physics. I love science, so we can talk science all the time too. Um, and yeah, you can find me on Patreon. You can subscribe and like and follow, depending on where you are, for more of these enlightening informational videos. And feel free to join me anytime I have my sessions. You can get to see the cat once in a while, Mr. Shadow over here. And you can come and chill, ask questions, and enlighten your thoughts, enlighten your logic, get them brain cells working, and learn new skills, real life skills. We can all play games all day, but what do we get from those? Not much. Um, but if there's any questions, you can feel free to ask them now. As I wonder if the YouTube the stream manager is kind of wonky. Sometimes there's one person, sometimes there's two, then it goes straight to zero, which makes sense. Sometimes people drop in and drop out, but none of the history is actually showing. Can you chill? Can you relax up? Can you relax over here? Chill out a bit. Have a little bit of a cat moment. There we go. No? Okay. All right. That's fine. What do you want to do? Make a decision. Anyway, make sure to like and subscribe. I've got more and more on a daily basis. I'm gonna try to do every day. Generally speaking, I might not be able to because I do have students I have to tend to. And I may have to be back and forth. Sometimes I go help my grandma out at the garden. But whenever I do have a chance, I will pop up. I don't have a set schedule yet. I do want to in the future. And that's why I'm kind of trying to probe different timelines, go live here and there, see when the most amount of students. But it looks like Eastern Time US, it's probably about morning time where a good amount of students pop up. A lot of viewers enjoy it. I get a good 6 to 10 attendees in the mornings. So keep an eye out for the mornings. It seems to be the most attractive time for people, which makes no sense, honestly. I mean, you wake up, you want to go straight to programming? You kidding me? I wake up, I want to get some coffee, wake up a little bit. So that's interesting to see. But yeah, man. Let's see. Hmm. You can find me again, Patreon. You can find on Super Scholar Chris MIA. You can look up on Google or Bing or Yahoo, Christoph tutoring or Christoph with Chris MIA. Also follow me on X if you are on X. You can basically find most of my links here at the bottom. This little thing over here. flipping around down there. That's a little JavaScript animated space I've created. So it informs me of what I do. You can find me right there on Patreon. Is that the one? Yeah, or Super Scholar. Actually, that'll take you directly to my Patreon too. So Super Scholar to XYZ. I did have a server upgrade. Let me see if it's working. Yeah, okay. It's working fine. Maybe I should add more stuff. I do have a full stack web developer course in there. Can help you go from beginning, learning programming, all the way to managing your own server, using JavaScript to create interactive applications, and all kinds of little details in between. So I'll go ahead and end it here. Thanks for joining. Hope this was at least a little bit enlightening. It's a very short one because, again, not a lot of people attended. I'm going to focus on the morning streams. I'll probably try again on these time periods, different days to kind of probe and see when people decide to join in, and see kind of the general feel. But so far, mornings, for whatever reason, win. Maybe people just have a coffee and turn on a little educational stuff so I can start the day just right, which is great. I do like my mornings too. Anyway, thanks for joining. Find me on all of these cases, Patreon, x.com. I believe in my chat, you'll see a lot of my links.